How long is the Easter season?
50 days.
50 days. That's why we call it Pentecost. Pent for 50. So we are at the, not the beginning, it would maybe seem like it, but we are at the first Sunday of the second Sunday of the Easter season. And the second Sunday, at least in the reading from the Gospel, we have a story about the second Sunday of Easter, focusing on Thomas. Now, anybody named Thomas here, by the way? Okay, that's good, because Thomas has sort of gotten a bad rap. You know, everybody calls him Doubting Thomas. But I think that we ought to rename him and call him Scientific Thomas. Because we are in the scientific age, right? And science is something that measures not fake news, but real news, and tries to determine what is really real and what is fake. And Thomas was not just going to, even though these were his friends, he was not going to believe. And by the way, that word believe, you look at your text, it appears at least a half a dozen times just in this text alone. And it's also repeated in the other two readings. So it's a pretty big thing for John, the writer of John, to talk about belief. So Thomas said, I'm not going to believe this story unless I can experience it firsthand. And incidentally, it is only in the Gospel of John that Jesus is pierced in the side. It doesn't happen in the other three Gospels. And if you remember the story, when he is pierced in the side, what comes out? Blood and water. Is this a birthing scene? When a woman gives birth, what comes out? Blood and water. And what happened in the very beginning of creation, this first story of creation? Eve comes out of the side of Adam, a birthing story. And so here is a story, a birthing story, if you wish, that connects it to the story of Nicodemus. Nicodemus came to Jesus in chapter 3 of John, and Jesus says, you must be born anew. So here is that birthing sequence in the Gospel of John's story that happens right at the climax of Jesus' glorification. That's a phrase that John uses, that Jesus was glorified on the cross. As you have Christus Rex, Jesus on the cross, not Jesus in agony and suffering, but Jesus reigning. But it's all about belief. So when we use that word belief, what comes to your mind? What do you think of when somebody would ask you, do you believe? What do you say?
Show me. Certitude.
Certitude. What else?
Believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth.
The creed. When we say frequently in churches, let us reaffirm our faith, our belief, by saying the words of the Nicene Creed. If you think about it, for most of us, when we think about belief, it's a cognitive thing. It's about a series of statements that we can say, I believe these statements. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus the Son? Yeah, we affirm all of those statements. But that's not the story of Thomas. The disciples who saw Jesus on that first Sunday, the first day of the week, says, we've seen the Lord. And Thomas says, I can't believe that. I need to experience it firsthand. And then when Jesus has the encounter with Thomas, what does he say to him? Come here, come close. Put your hands in my hands. Put your hands in my side. That's a relationship thing, isn't it? It's close, it's connecting. It's not faith up here, it's not belief up here. It's a relationship. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Richard Rohr's writings, the Franciscan spiritual director in New Mexico. He says, faith is not belief. Faith is relationship. And the Gospel of John, more than the other synoptics, lifts up this image that faith in Jesus, and Jesus as the Messiah, was a relationship thing. Now we have to think about that in terms of our own life, our own experience. We tend to, too often in this day, want to focus our belief on a set of doctrines, a set of cognitive things. But it's all about relationship. That's why, in terms of your own personal life, your personal prayer time is relationship time. It's not coming to God with a list of givings. It's coming to God just to be in relationship with God. And that's why it's so important, because it's part of the relationship. Now, in this story of John, Jesus does three things at the first Sunday. The second Sunday focuses on Thomas. But the first Sunday, he comes in and he says what? What's his first words? Peace be with you. We pass the peace regularly to the Sunday. But sometimes we forget how profound those words are. Because they're words given at a time when they were not feeling very peaceful. What are we told? They were afraid. They were behind closed doors. There was a lot of fear going on because of what had just happened. And peace, Jesus says, peace be with you. Twice. The second thing that he says, and this is good for us Episcopalians, as my Father has sent me, so I am sending you. We are sent people. We're not just comfortable pew sitters. We're sent people. And then the third thing that he does, we're used to Easter as being a 50-day period before Pentecost, but not according to John's chronology. In John's chronology, he breathes on them and says, receive the Holy Spirit. It's done right on that first day of the week, the day of the resurrection. And it's in giving, and again, this is, John, begins with, in the beginning was the Word, so it's a creation story. And if you remember the creation story in Genesis, the Spirit hovers over the deep before God says, let there be, and there is. So Jesus breathes on them, receive the Spirit of God. Part of the basis on which we can really affirm being sent people is because we're empowered by the Spirit. That's what enables us to be courageous in a time of fear, in a time of apprehension, in a time of discombobulation is a way I would like to phrase what's going on in our day. But being sent people empowered by the Spirit, we can courageously go forward. So this second Sunday, the continuation of the Easter cycle is really a very powerful day in terms of how John depicts what happens right after the resurrection. Amen.
Amen.